Now, we're going to be talking now about blended families. You could call them step families, it's whatever you want to call them. But what we're asking is, how do you achieve this rather difficult achievement, really, of having a happily blended family? If you've cracked it, please get in touch. If you've got problems with it, get in touch. The number's 0207 862 2222. Do give us a ring. Maybe you're worried about introducing your partner to your kids, or perhaps you're wondering when is the right time for your new love interest to move in with you. Here to answer our questions, and yours too, is psychologist and step-family expert, Dr Lisa Doodson. Thank you for coming, Lisa. So loads of families in this country are going through this right now.
Yes.
And Helen, you're at the stage where you are in love, you've got a lovely partner, but you haven't yet moved in together.
No, we don't live together, but my boyfriend has met my children, yeah.
Yeah. And how old are his children? He's got children too?
Yeah, so he has two lovely daughters. Sophia is 15 and Karina is 10. Oh, no, turned 11.
And how did you sort of work out when to introduce, when to, say to your children, this is someone I love or I like, or a friend of mummy's, or how did you do it?
It was a really big deal for me to introduce my children to someone. I met Robbie's daughters first, and then I think it was about 4 months, and I have my children probably 90% of the time because their daddy is away playing football, so he lives quite far away. So I wouldn't be able to have a relationship really if my children didn't meet my boyfriend. But it was a really big deal for me. It was a really big thing.
What did you say? Do you remember the language that you used?
I didn't make a big deal of it. I just said, oh, this is mummy's friend. And then he just played football with my kids, and that was it.
And that was it. Because I know that way back in the midst of time, thoroughly messed it up because I had, my husband had, no, I really did. My husband had just left, and there I was with my girls, and they were 10 and 13, and within a couple of months, I met someone actually who was an old school friend, so I'd known him for years anyway, so I kind of trusted him, big mistake. And I felt that my girls were so wounded, so shocked, that I wanted to keep them almost kind of permanently under my wings. And I also wanted him to know I come as a package with them. It's not just me.
Yes.
It's me and my two girls. So I kind of included them in everything straight away. And within about 15 weeks, he ended it. And they were absolutely upset, crestfallen, and they'd only just, were coping with a split from their father. So I definitely shouldn't have done it like that. So it's over to you, Dr. Lisa, to help people know, how do you gauge when the time is right?
I think you have to trust yourself. I think what you said, Helen, I think that was perfect. Quite frankly, I think it's best not to make too big a deal of it, particularly when the children are young, because they don't really understand. They don't understand relationships. They just know mummy's got a friend, and they get to know him, and that's the most important thing. So I think it's not making it. I understand why we all feel so protective of our children. We want to do the right thing. But you have to trust yourself and know that you are the mum or the dad, and it's about saying, no, this is the right thing for me. I need this relationship. I'm happy, and I want to share that with the children. But it's taking it at a pace that doesn't overwhelm everybody, either your partner or the children.
What, though, if your children are perfectly capable, as most children are, of making it clear that they're not very keen either on your new partner, you're head over heels, or your whole libido and your sexiness is sparked up, you just can't wait to just be with them every second, you want it to work desperately, but A, they don't like him or her, and B, they really can't stand their kids, because kids don't have to fall in love just because you've fallen in love. No. And if you've got children who are perfectly capable, as mine most definitely when I bet yours, I've met yours, and I bet they're perfectly capable too, although they're young, of expressing how they feel, like I don't like him and I don't like them and I'm not sharing my toys, and, no, tell them we don't want them to come this weekend. What do you do then?
So I think, first of all, think about it from their perspective. Why would they? What's the benefit for them?
Why should they? Why would they?
Why should they?
Yeah.
And they're still coping with a loss, as you said. They're getting to sort of coming to terms with there's no dad around, or maybe there's no mum around, and they're lashing out. So you bring someone in, you look really happy, maybe dad isn't very happy, and they feel guilty. So when they do say, and stamp their feet and go, we don't like him, get rid of him, kind of thing.
Yes.
You've got to try and talk to them and say, it must be really hard, and how do you feel about it, and why? And understand from their perspective, So you know, they might just say, well, they can't tell me off, they're not my mum, kind of thing.
They certainly do. Of course they say that. You're not my dad.
Of course they do.
They have to listen to you.
But, you know, it's trying to understand, is there a real problem, in which case you need to, you know, to really understand it? Or is it just them lashing out and being angry that their lives are changing?
Yeah.
You know, and it's really just about taking it slowly, listening to them, just being a mum, you know.
Honestly, this is a huge, huge subject. There are so many things I want to ask her, and I will. I'm going to cram in as many questions as I can. Believe me, I am. But let's go to Jenny in Nottinghamshire, because the lines are lighting up all over the place. Loads and loads of calls on this one. Okay. Jenny, hi. Thanks for ringing. Tell me about blended families.
Hello, my love. Right. So when I met my first husband, obviously we had a child, but we didn't stay long very much together. Yeah. So when my daughter was 2.5, we'd separated by then and divorced. Right. And then I met my next husband. We've been together 38 years, and my daughter is now 40. And when she was 2.5, and I met my husband, well, my partner to start with for 2 years, she started calling him Daddy within a very short time. And since then, since we've been married as well, we've had 2 more daughters, but none of us say, oh, just by the way, you're only half sister, you're not full sisters, we don't talk about this. And she still calls him Daddy and me Mummy.
And do you think that's because she was so young, or do you think it's because he's so lovely, or did you do something clever to make it happen so seamlessly? What's the secret of that very happily blended family, Jenny, do you think?
I think it's because she never had a dad at all. She never had a daddy around her.
Right.
So she obviously thought that, oh, this must be my daddy then. So that's when she started calling him Daddy at age 2.5. And we've never had any issues. And as I said, she's absolutely been brilliant. And now we've got grandchildren as well.
Oh, fabulous.
And she doesn't say to him, oh, by the way, these aren't your grandchildren properly. Nothing ever gets mentioned. We just call it as that it's a full family. There's no difference at all. It's absolutely lovely.
Well, that sounds absolutely perfect, Jenny. Thank you very much. I mean, that's obviously the ideal.
It's great, and it's lovely to hear about the grandparents. I remember there was one lady I was talking to once, and she said she was sort of the step granny, if you like, and she said, I've got no role. She said, I don't know what my role is. And I said, there's no rule that says you only have to have this many grandparents. You can be an extra, you know, find a name. What name would you like to be? And you'll be brilliant, because children need, you know, they need a group of people to support them. We all need, you know, a mum and a dad and grandparents and friends and aunts and uncles. And you've just got to find your place. And I think what Jenny was saying there was great. That worked for her family. There's no one size fits all, but that's you know, it's really lovely to hear.
All right, well, the calls are coming in thick and fast, and I'm not at all surprised, because it is a very difficult juggling act, and there can be hostilities breaking out all over the place. No matter how much you want it to go smoothly, there are too many different personalities, aren't there? Egos, arrangements, it can be really difficult. So still to come, Dr Lisa will be sticking around to take some more of your calls on how to blend a family successfully, if you think you know. Right. Back to blended families now, let's pay attention. Dr Lisa Doodson's also still here with us, and we're taking more of your calls on blended family life. Let's go to Demarque in London. Hi, Demarque.
Hi, Vanessa, how are you?
I'm OK. Haven't I spoken to you on the phone on a radio show?
No, we work together on
I recognise your name. I think I know you. Tell me what you want to tell me about blended families.
My brother, he has 3 children. So he's got one child with one mum and two children with another. And my 15-year-old nephew found it difficult at first because he was an only child. But now it's been lovely to see him being a big brother figure to my niece and nephew, and them having such a close bond. So I think they can work. But what I would say is that if you are starting a new blended family, I would suggest that you don't sort of mix them together at first. Let it bed in, and let your new partner meet the children probably 3 or 4 months down the line. I wouldn't suggest you do it straight away.
And that's pretty much what you did. You eased it in very gently, didn't you?
Yes, yeah, and I was very aware of how my daughter especially is a daddy's girl, and also I think it's kind of a matter of respect as well, because I know that with Scott as well. I just say to my kids that they have one mummy and one daddy, and mummy's boyfriend's just a friend, and that's it. And then I hope that my ex would do the same, because I couldn't bear it if someone ever called, my kids ever called someone else mommy or something like that. I would die. So I think it's just having an equal amount of respect, you know?
Totally get that. And you can hear Dr. Lisa when Helen says, I would die if another child
I would actually die.
if one of my children called someone else mummy, I would die.
I'd be heartbroken.
I mean, feelings run very, very high. It's your actual family, they're your actual children, it's your real life. Some strangers are walking in. It is the biggest deal.
It is the biggest deal. And I've never met a woman who's a stepmom want to do that.
Yeah.
Never. In all the years that I've been working. Everybody wants to try and find their place, but that place is not replacing the mom. It's somebody else.
What about, though, because if we get into the nitty-gritty of it, what about if you have certain rules with your children? Let's just say there are certain foods you like them to eat, foods you don't like them to eat, certain amount of screen time you like them to have, or ideally, in my opinion, no screen time ever whatsoever. This is a book. Read it. Read this book. Do not look at a screen. But, you know, and the other family behave in a very different way. They don't do the things that you do. And yet there are your children and their children in, you know, commingling and everything else. How do you deal with that? What are you supposed to do to navigate that?
So it is really hard, but I think the more you try and, I always say, like, control what you can control. So there's another life going on outside of your world with your ex-partner, and you have to trust them. They are the dad or the mum, so they have to bring the children up in the way that they think is appropriate. Obviously, you're co-parenting, and you can chat about things and maybe have sort of big rules that you want to both agree on, but ultimately you'll tear yourself apart if you're looking at the other household going, oh, they didn't, you know, have carrots today, and they didn't do this, and they didn't.
Yeah, you don't want your children to come home and say, well, daddy lets me, or mummy lets me, and you're like, hang on, we don't do this here. Oh yeah, but I've been doing it all weekend. I mean, it's,
I can't bear fizzy drinks.
And
I always say, I say to Scott, I say, oh, can you not give the kids fizzy drinks? And then I think to myself, you know what, Helen? He's just given them a nice time. He's taken them to the cinema. It's not a big deal if they have slush and sweets. No, you don't do that. But I don't want to I also feel as though if I said that to my ex, you'd do it more, because he's probably thinking, don't tell me what to do. So I just let it go. I think you can't sweat the small stuff, can you?
I don't know.
As long as the children are happy.
Yeah, I don't think you can. I mean, it's a choice, you know. But I think it's focus on the things that really matter, you know, and have your argument about this. Stand your ground and say, no, this is really important. Other things, as long as the children eat well when they're with you, they'll be fine.
Right, let's go to Joanne on the line in Nottinghamshire. Hello, Joanne. Thanks for ringing. What about blended families in your life?
I don't think it works. It's never worked.
Oh.
Sorry, can you hear me?
I hear you fine. What happened? What were you trying to blend, and why didn't it work?
My ex-husband went off with his pregnant girlfriend, and he had other children that I didn't know about. And he told my children straight face that he didn't want to see them anymore because he was living with another woman in her family, and he didn't want to know them anymore.
Oh, that's so hurtful. That's dreadful. I'm so sorry. Awful. Gosh. How old were they when he said that to them?
6 and 8.
Oh, my goodness.
Oh, wow.
So I'm assuming that you had to sort of step into the breach and make it up to them and be mum and dad and kind of somehow make up for the vacuum. How difficult for you, though? What a pressure.
Very difficult. I gave up work because that was agreed before we got married, that I would be the stay-at-home mum and he would work. He was a prison officer, so I had a decent job. I've got Crohn's disease, so I always only worked part-time because it was very difficult for me. But yeah, thankfully, my children, my son's just left home, he's 25, but the nastiness that came from my ex-husband and his new wife, if you like, well, they did get married eventually, but yeah, I wanted and did the best that I could for my children.
And how are they doing now, Joanne? How are they doing? How are they?
Well, like I say, they're old now. My son's 25. He's the youngest. But I did whatever I needed to do.
To give them the
But
best
the
life that you could.
blame-
Listen, I really appreciate the call. Thank you very much. And one of the first things I said on the show today was life isn't always perfect. You know, you can try with the best will in the world. And if you're in a marriage with somebody who isn't what they say they are and doesn't believe the things that you believe in, it can be incredibly difficult. And I know as parents, all we can really do is the very, very best that we can for our kids. Joanne, thank you so much for that call.